clarity really became, I guess, really solid for me as an issue. I'm going to call it an issue for practitioners when I started the actual one-on-one coaching with practitioners. So, one of the first things you do when you go see a coach is they ask you, where do you want to be? What do you want? What's in the future for you? So you identify where you are now and where you want to go, where you want to be. And that where do you want to be in 12 months is a really, really hard question for a lot of people to answer.
Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast, where we guide natural health and wellness experts through the pitfalls of marketing. Each episode, you'll learn simple, effective, easily actionable, and heart-centered marketing strategies. And here's your host, Angus Pyke.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends. Life has so much to offer. That's my guest, Angela Carroll's philosophy. Now, Angela is a qualified naturopath, acupuncturist, natural fertility management counselor, certified experience coach, educator, mentor, writer, podcaster, event and training developer. Yep, she's a really big deal. Now, Angela has been working in the natural medicine industry for nearly 3 decades. She's run her own successful practice. And get this, over the past 16 years, she's educated over 10,000, I'm making stuff up now, over 10,000 practitioners. And today we're going to be talking all about the importance and the power of clarity. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I've been excited about our chat today. I was lucky enough to come on your podcast a couple of months ago, and then I wanted to reach out. And when we were chatting about clarity today, I was very excited about that because I'm very passionate about this concept. It's the idea it's very hard to hit a target when you don't know where that target is. But before we get into all of that stuff, can you give our listeners a little bit of your background story? What brings you to this place and time?
Yeah, sure. So I was having a midlife crisis. Probably I was about 26.
Early.
Life get it up early. I was living in Japan. I did 10 years corporate. I'd done corporate traineeships and studied business, and I didn't want any more of that. So I had a bit of an epiphany to become a naturopath. So I came back from Tokyo to Australia and started studying back in the early 90s, actually, and essentially have worked in the industry since as an acupuncturist, naturopath, and I had my own business for about 10 years, working for myself. And that was a clinic here in Brisbane, which I really loved, really, really loved. And I used to go to the Metagenics seminars. Metagenics, if you don't know, is a really big company. It's Australia's leading education and supplement company. It's international now, so we've got it in America and Europe. And anyway, so I used to go to these seminars, and they were like a big deal. They were 4 or 5 hour seminars, and I used to sit there looking at the presenter in awe and think, oh my God, I want to be like them one day. I want to be like that one day. I was so inspired. And so one time they approached me and said, would you like to work for us? And I went, nah, I'm happy in my clinic. I love what I do. And they kept pestering. And then I said, okay, as long as I can become a presenter with you. They said, yeah, absolutely. So essentially, 16 years later, I'm still with Metagenics. I'm still presenting seminars and education events. But one of the big things that I really found early on is speaking to practitioners and talking to practitioners is that they're great with the clinical stuff. They can be great clinicians. They know their stuff. They know what they're doing. But the business of running a business was completely, just the basics weren't even there because we don't get educated. And I really don't think that the majority of practitioners start studying. I don't think this would be in any modality. Start studying thinking that they're going to be a business person. It's really not until you get to your final years and you suddenly go, oh, I need to actually have another skill set here. So then I started trying to fill that gap. Actually started helping practitioners, mentoring, putting together courses and training courses. And I built a training course known as Best Practice. And that's been running for 7 years now, I think 7 or 8 years. 2011 we started that. 9 years. And so, yeah, that worked really well. And off the bat of that, just really building these relationships with practitioners and going to the clinics and seeing what they do, and it's just kept building and building and building. And now my really strong passion is just helping practitioners to be more successful at what they do on the business side of things. And it's really fulfilling. And you're doing a similar thing, so it's a really fulfilling aspect to be coaching and mentoring and training and putting together, tailored material for practitioners so that they can relax a little bit and do what they love doing, which is getting people well.
I wonder, I kind of felt like as I was going through getting my chiropractic degree that I almost had anti-business training. So we had none, but there was this kind of conversation that went on amongst us. And I'm not quite sure how it permeated through, because the idea was kind of this: look, if you're just really good at what you do and you help people get well, that's all you need to do. Like, it's really only those practitioners that are lousy at what they do. They're the kind of shysters that are, sending out mail drops, or in our case, advertising on social media. And so somehow I took that on board. And so I had this inside of me, this belief system and that's what took me so long to kind of work through it. So not only are we given no marketing training, and that kind of, when I tell that story, it's so similar. What do you think that's about?
Why do we get no marketing training at college?
Well, why do you think that so many of us, is it a health thing that, because I often wonder that this kind of idea that, because what we're selling, and if we use that word inverted commas kind of selling, is health. Why is it that so many of us tend to have a little bit of an icky feeling in around that? And why do we just grab a hold of this concept of, look, just be good at what you do, and that's all you'll need to do to build an epic practice?
Yeah, and first of all, I want to say that no, it's not all we need to do.
Yeah, I agree.
People have got to find you. So why? I think there's two reasons why. I think the first reason is that we've been brought up with that the stigma that goes with the door-to-door salesman, the sleazy car salesman, second-hand car salesman. That feeling you're being sold to is not a nice feeling on the receiving end of it, and you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that person. And there's also this whole thing: wherever you look, you hear, "Oh my God, being in sales is so hard." So who wants to do something that's hard work? Well, some of us do, but if it's something that we're not comfortable with, it's not going to gel. The other thing too, I think, that is the concept of marketing is buy from me.
Yep.
I've got something that I want to sell you.
Yep.
And I think coming from it from the wrong perspective. It's I've got something that will benefit you. Your life could be so much better. I can see a bigger vision for you. I can see a better way for you to be, and I want to show you how you can get that. Yeah. And I remember reading years ago a quote that sales is the transfer of enthusiasm. And I've always stuck with it. If you're enthusiastic about what you do, you believe what you do, you love what you do, and look, let's face it, someone walks into your practice, no matter what kind of practice you've got, if you're excited, if you're enthusiastic, if you love what you do, people are going to buy what you've got. Health, treatments, whatever it happens to be. Yeah. And philosophy.
Yeah. I wonder also, I've been thinking about a lot this recently, because as you mentioned before, we've all experienced really bad marketing, and whether it be the door-to-door salesperson, the interrupting phone call at dinner, that kind of stuff too. But here's the thing, and I want our listeners to really get this, is that you are being marketed to all the time, but good marketing is invisible. Like, it's totally invisible. So, I watched yesterday, I went and bought a coat for my wife from Lululemon, and lines of people, because of COVID and stuff like that, out the door. And they have such a beautiful marketing system, but it's totally invisible. We don't see it because they do such a great job of it. And I want to, I want to jump into this concept of clarity, but I just want to kind of double tap on the idea that great marketing should never, it shouldn't be pushy. It shouldn't be sleazy. And my experience is that I get people thanking me for my marketing. I have a bit of a chuckle about it sometimes, but really that's the sign of great marketing. When you create a great video for people and, move them along their journey towards the outcome that they're looking for. So, clarity, what is it? Why it's important? And because when we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, you were saying that, it's one of the challenges of the practitioners that you coach, of them not knowing really what they want, and then the problems leading from there. So can you tell us a little bit about that, Ange?
Yeah, sure. So I've got got quite a lot of thoughts on the whole aspect of clarity. Clarity really became, I guess, really solid for me as an issue. I'm going to call it an issue for practitioners when I started the actual one-on-one coaching with practitioners. So, one of the first things you do when you go see a coach is they ask you, where do you want to be? What do you want? What's in the future for you? So you identify where you are now and where you want to go, where you want to be. And that where do you want to be in 12 months is a really, really hard question for a lot of people to answer. Or where do you want to be in 6 months? So, we're at a 6-month mark. We know if you're there in 6 months, we know we're on track to get you to where you want to be at 12 months. It's like, I just want to be a little bit less than where I was at the 12 months, and just getting that, what do you actually want? And so I know that in my early days of coaching, is that we'd end up with a list. This is what I want, and this is how it's got to be, and it's got to be SMART goals. You've got to have these SMART goals, and you work towards your goals, which is great. You do have to have something that is measurable, absolutely. But then you end up with a big long to-do list, and there's no fun in just having to do a to-do list every day at all. And what I've come to realize over time now with one-on-one coaching, it's the what do you want? That clarity is what gets you out of bed in the morning. And where are you now? Where do you want to be? What that should actually really make you excited. That clarity on where you want to go really needs to be the thing that drives you on a regular basis. So it's not a to-do list. You're not kicking yourself to get there. You're actually drawn there. You wake up, the movement in that direction is really quite powerful.
Can I hold on a point just a moment there too? Because I see so many people, when I ask them where they want to be in whatever time frame, they're really great at telling me what they don't want. I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this. And in fact, let me say other people, I'm really great at that. Making a decision in around what I do want. In the past, I've had some real difficulties with. I'll kind of share how I got over that too. But how do you, if you're having that conversation with people, how do you move them into making a commitment of saying, this is where I'd like to be in 6 months or 12 months? How do we get towards that?
I think the first thing really is a lot of the time you've got to talk it out. A lot of the time, particularly for women. And I have found that it's sometimes easier for men to have that clarity than it does for women. It might just be a man brain, girl brain difference. I don't want to stereotype, but I do find that a tendency. But sometimes just talking that process through and working out, what do you want to be? Well, why do you actually want that? So going back into the why. So if somebody expects that of you, or you feel that you're obliged to do that, then that's not really where you want to be. That's not really clarity in that aspect of it. And so what I do with my coaching is I work on values. So I give them a value sheet. Go away, work out your values. Because a lot of people don't even know what your values are. It's like, what are your values? Oh, my values, they're the family and friends and having money. It's like, well, what about the family? What do you want to do with the family? You can have family. But that's just, family is not really a value. Yep. What do you want to do with that family? What do you stand for with family? How will you back your family? Same thing with friends. Spending time with my friends is a value. Well, is it quality time with your friends? Is it quantity time with your friends? Is it building each other up? Is it sounding blocks? So that the values are more intricate than just overall titles, if you like. And so working out the values in fine detail, what's really important to you. For example, I just got off a coaching call before we started here, and we've really instilled with my client that community. Her number one value is community. So anything that she wants to gain clarity, anything that she wants to go to, her goals need to be around community. So that's developing that clarity. So if it's not within your values, it's the end goal isn't going to be fun, or it's probably not going to be something you'll achieve either.
Yeah. And then, so do you have a process or something that our listeners wanted to kind of get some clarity in around their values? How would they go about that?
So I think there's a lot of tools online as a quick easy way to go.
Yep.
What do you actually want as far as your values go? There's books and there's a lot of resources that are out there as far as identifying your values. Coaching is a good way of working out your values as well. I actually love one of the things, actually, show and tell. Kind of give it.
This is why you should be watching the video version, not just listening. Okay, so head on over and watch the video.
It's a series of journals that are written by a girl that actually did coaching with me, daily greatness journals. And
I know of those. Yes.
Daily greatness. So she does it. I'm holding this one up because I live by it. This has been one of the best things for me to get clarity. So it's a journaling process, and it's more than just waking up and doing a journal. There's a whole lot of tasks that go at the front. So it's excuse me, clarity on, like, it helps you to set clarity on what do you want to achieve in your health? What do you want to achieve in your family? What do you want to achieve financially? What do you want to achieve on a spiritual goal? And it's not a to-do list. It's just like, where do you want to be? How do you want to feel when you're in that place?
Yes.
And she also has, which I will get around to starting. I haven't started this one yet, but she has a business planner.
Yeah.
Oh, is that on?
I can see that. Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, so there's a business planner as well. So effectively what you are doing is you're going through writing out, you've got, I'll just try and find here, identifying your vision, identifying your mission, what's important to you, where do you want to go? And sometimes it's just a real process of writing to get clarity on what it is. And so actually finding that clarity in the first place is the first step in the challenge. And I think also one of the things I find quite useful is asking the question. So when let's just say a business owner. I want to be a successful business owner. I want to run my practice smoothly. I want to be proud of what I have. I want to get home at the end of the day and know that I've done a great job and that I've helped a lot of people. Then who do you need to be? Who do you need to be that person? So, the whole thing with personal growth and development is moving yourself from where you are now to being a better version of yourself.
Yes.
Consistently. And when you identify where you want to be, then you can identify how you need to be to turn up. So part of clarity is being that person every day that you need to be to turn up to achieve those results that you want as well.
Yeah, I love that concept. I've struggled with any kind of long-term vision, and it wasn't all that long ago. I had a couple of breakthroughs with it that I wonder if this might be helpful for our listeners there too. One of my values, certainly my top 3, is freedom. And so the moment I articulate a plan in around 6 or 12 months, then it removes a level of freedom for me. And so that's with some of the contradiction that comes to me. But what I realized is this about a decade ago, I realized that I could set a vision and I could change it. I could set a plan and I could change it. And that all of a sudden was like a weight off my shoulders to say, okay, look, you know what? I think over this next 12 months, I would like to have a practice that's doing A, B, C, or D. And the great thing is I don't go straight from where I am now to where that practice is in 12 months' time. I had a goal early on in my practice about the volume of people I wanted to see and how I wanted to go about it. And I got 2/3 of the way there and went, no, this is my sweet spot here. I actually don't want to see any more people. I already feel busy enough. This is starting to get stressful for me. I like the way that I'm doing it. I don't want to work any more hours. But I'm a slow learner with that. And it took me time to realize that. But when I share that story with people, it often gives them a sense of shoulder stop, like give it a go. So maybe you decide that you want to just work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that might work for you, might not. But you'll never know unless you actually put something out there to kind of begin with. And I like that idea of, I've never thought about taking that vision and then having it kind of just making sure it kind of it matches in with my values also. So yeah, some of my thoughts.
So if one of your biggest values is freedom, then how would that help you to have clarity around what you want to achieve?
Yeah. So it's moved me into, it was part of the drive that moves me a lot of work out of my practice and one-on-one with patients into the audio media work that I do there as well. So I have to, at different times when I'm making decisions in around how I want to serve my community in the future, I have to check in with regards to, sometimes I have these lovely fantasies of setting up this amazing office studio workspace. And I know what it would look like and all the cool places and stuff like that too. And then I go, well, actually, that doesn't buy into freedom that I want. So now I kind of am able to kind of run it back through that with my needs in terms of what do I want to invest into, those kind of things. And so I'm able to kind of do it with regards to that. And I'm also now have this idea of I'm totally okay for changing things along the way. And I've got to check in with myself that this is not me trying to get out of things that are difficult. I quite like difficult things there too, but there are times I would be tempted to go, oh no, I'll use freedom as an excuse for why I don't want to continue doing this. So I will create a new product that I think will serve my community. I will start it for a while, I'll promote it for a while, and then I'll get a bit bored of it. And then I'll tell myself it's my creative freedom side of things that means I want to start another one. It's not. It's not that at all. It's that I need to go more deep and narrow and all that kind of stuff there too. And sometimes, so I'm more aware of those things. They still catch me and trip me up on a daily basis, but at least having some level of awareness around, my values with regards to kind of just being aware of that and not letting me kind of use that as an excuse as how it's helped me.
Mm. I would want to ask you if you freedom's one of your values, then freedom to do what? So it's good to know you want freedom.
Great question.
Why do you want that freedom to do what?
Yeah. So the freedom for me is in freedom of choice. And particularly if we put it in around work, for instance, so if I put that umbrella on there too, it's really to work when I want, how I want, and with whom I want. So it's those kind of things there. So where I can, and so for instance, the area where some of that gets challenged for me in practice is that if I'm going to be adjusting somebody, then, I need to have the right equipment around. We need to work at a place where that kind of happens. It takes a couple of those. We have to kind of agree on a time. I'll see you there at 1:15, or that's when your appointment is. And don't get me wrong, I'm still in practice 15 hours a week. So I'm still doing that kind of stuff there too. But this morning I wanted to be up and working at 6 a.m. And tomorrow morning I might not want to. I probably will, but it'll be that want there is what's important for me. So it's that freedom's in around location, timing, and with whom I work are the key things that was where freedom kind of shows up for me.
So that then is where that ties into your values coming into a deeper level. So
Yes.
we often go, I want freedom. I say, well, freedom from what? And I have when you're saying to work where I want, when I want, well, you didn't say where you want, to work when you want, with whom you want, and how you want, I think it was.
Yeah.
Mine is very similar, financial freedom, time freedom, so that I can live my life on my terms.
Yes.
I always say I'm building a life that I don't need a vacation from.
Yes.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
So, where is that, when it comes back to the clarity side of the conversation, why is clarity important? So this is really sort of talking about this because it's realizations that have come over time. It's back in college days, they used to ask, where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Write those plans. I had no idea. No idea 10 years ago, if you asked me, I still had no idea where I wanted to be at that time. But now if you ask me, I'm really clear on that. It's taken a long time and a lot of work to get there. But the purpose of the clarity for me is to save yourself all that regret and wasted time, wasted money, wasted energy, wasted everything. Have you ever had, let me ask you this question. Have you ever got to the end of a year? Sorry, I'm taking over your podcast.
No, I love it. I feel like I'm getting a free coaching session here, so I'm up for it.
I'm not trying to coach you.
This is the whole idea. It's all about you anyway, Ange, so just keep on going. So I'm happy to expose all of my flaws and insecurities, so let's just dig in.
Oh, no, we've got them all. We've all got them. have you ever got to the end of the year and felt you've done nothing? Like what happened this year? What have I achieved this year? I haven't achieved anything. Where in actual fact, you probably did. Probably a lot. It's just that you didn't identify your goals. You did not get clarity on what you wanted. And so instead of going for directly where you wanted to go, you meandered and you got sidetracked with other things. Oh, I want to do this for a bit, do that for a bit. And then you get to the end of the year and you feel like you've done nothing because you actually didn't identify what you wanted to do. So there's still something boiling away on the inside that didn't get satisfied.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Are you aware of any of strategic coach Dan Sullivan? Are you aware of Dan?
I am aware of him, but I haven't done any work with him.
So Dan has a little book, if people are interested in this, called The Question. And I'll paraphrase the question, but the question goes like this. If you and I were having a conversation 3 years from now and we're looking back, what would need to have happened in your life, both professionally and personally, for you to feel happy about the progress? And when I read that, it freed me up and I was able to go stream of thoughts writing, because it tricked me into writing what my goals would be, all those kind of things. And there's another process, if anybody's interested in any of the positive psychology work, if you did a search for Appreciative Inquiry. So there are big companies around the world that are doing this same process, and they kind of go about it the same way. Their framework into it, and just this concept of, if you were to it's not wake from a coma, but if you were asleep for 3 years and you were to wake up and everything was going fantastically in your business, what would need to have happened over those 3 years? Something like that. Again, they articulate it in much more clarity than what I did. But those two processes, so Dan Sullivan's little book called The Question, I think it is, and Appreciative Inquiry, are two great ways that have been helpful for me to kind of backdoor into this part of my brain to get some clarity in around what I want. It helped me identify freedom. It's what helped me to move and transition over this last kind of decade also. Once somebody has started to get some clarity, values in around what their values are, what a future might look like. You talked about before the dreaded to-do list versus being able to jump out of bed with a level of enthusiasm as well. How do we differentiate between, I love the life that I'm living into, but I still have a to-do list, and sometimes it does feel a little bit dreaded. Is there a way that is that just part of the gig?
I think it's part of the gig. Yeah, I just do think it is part of the gig. There is always the dreaded to-do list, but it's a lot more bearable when you know it's going to get you to where you want to be at the end. It's inevitable. And a system that I really love is and actually I'll backtrack to that. But several years ago, I met this absolutely inspirational man in New Zealand. And he used to talk about how he would work on his 90-day plans, 90-day schedules, and he'd constantly work to these 90-day schedules. And at the end of 90 days, he'd review that, and what did he have to do the next 90 days, and then the next 90 days. And he was a phenomenal achiever. And I always, I start looking to him as to, okay, how can I be more like that? Talking about what character do I need to be? How do I need to turn up to achieve? And so I started working on these 90-day plans, and oh my God, it's so much easier. Mm-hmm. So that it's, once you get that clarity, which is not always easy, once you get the clarity, then you've got those 90-day plans, and that might seem overwhelming, but it's actually not overwhelming. And it works. Do you have one of those big 12-month year planners?
I'm not at the moment, but I have had them in the past. I know exactly what you're referring to. Yes.
Yeah, I could not live my life, particularly working for Metagenics, without one of those year planners. So I knew where I was going at each stage. So you work out where do you want to be at the end of the year? What are the big things you need to achieve at the end of the year? And then simply break those down into 4 stages. What are the 4 things? What stages do they need to be at? And then, so that gives you the 4 quadrants of the year, the 4 quarters of the year. And then, okay, at each quarter, what do you need to have achieved to make sure that it's moving forward? So you have your 12 months.
Yes.
And then you break the 4, and then you have your 4, and then of course there are 4 weeks in 3 months in a quarter.
Yes.
So you break those into 3, and then you take that first third, and then you break that into 4 for the 4 weeks. Is it making sense so far?
Total.
And
I'm with you. Yes. Yep.
5 days. What do you need to achieve in those? You've got to have 2 days weekend, right? I'm claiming my weekends.
Yes.
So the process, when you go, oh my God, it's so overwhelming, I've got so much to do. But when you actually break it down, all I have to do this week is this, and all I have to do today is this. Great, I've achieved that. And I really love the idea of having a little meeting with yourself. And that's what the journal is. It's my little meeting with myself.
Right.
Is that every day, this is my 3 things I've got to achieve today. I get to the end of the day, okay, I did them. And if it didn't happen, why didn't it happen? So I need to troubleshoot that. So that becomes then an ability to be able to grow and to be able to find solutions at each time. And invariably what happens in my life is things that didn't happen on that day for whatever reason go into the next day. And then so I work that out, or work out ways. And if I keep finding blocks and keep finding blocks where things don't get achieved, that's where I've got to go back in and go, okay, what is going on? So it stops the overwhelm.
Yeah, I love it. And what would happen from here on a daily basis? You're moving towards your 12-month plan.
Yes.
I've got a question for you. If one of our listeners were to start this weekend, would they do their 12 months finishing at Christmas, in which case it's 6 and a bit months? Would they do 12 months from now? Do you just go 12 months? How do you, this isn't part of my brain that sometimes like, oh, I've got to do a quarterly plan, but should it go on the financial quarters? Should it go on the fiscal quarters? What do you suggest with that?
What is it you want to achieve? So if your plan is something you want that you can do in 6 months, then make a 6-month plan. But the thing that happens at the quarterly, so that the 90 days, the thing that happens at the quarter, is you then are working out the quarter after that. So you've always got 12 months.
Yeah.
So where are we now? We're in June. So July, August, I have to count on my fingers, July, August, September.
Yes.
So in September, I'll review that, and then I'll have the next quarter going. So it keeps rolling so that I don't. And the reason for that, initially I thought it was 12 months. And I finished 12 months. Oh, great. What's the next 12 months? Let's go. But then I just waste a month while I'm mucking around trying to sort out where I want to be for the next, the balls all drop. So if I can just at night, okay, this is going nicely for that 90 days. This is what I got for the next 90 days. And then I tack on another 90 days. Yeah. That's how I would envisage doing it. And speaking to people who I know make this work, I'm pretty new to doing it this way, to be honest. I'm still in my first 12 months of my 12 months, if that makes sense. But I'm still pushing out the next 90 and pushing out the next 90. And so the people who I see make this work really well do it that way. Yeah, got it. So that whole thing, you see somebody do something really well that's successful, copy it. Yeah, modeling's great, isn't it? So let me see if I've got this right. We need to begin with getting some clarity around our values and what we might like our future to look like. And if we threw out 12 months there, if you're having some difficulty with that concept, then just, you can change along the way. And then maybe a couple of resources we've talked about, Dan Sullivan's The Question, the Appreciative Inquiry, and then the Daily Greatness Journals as well. I'll have links to all of these in the show notes too. How much time should I set aside to do that first? Here's what I'd like my life to look like. Is it a morning, an hour? Is it a day? What do you think? What would be, if someone's going to pencil this into their diary for phase 1, what would you suggest they put aside? Yeah. First question is, how important is the rest of your life? Yeah. I think if let's say somewhere between really important and really, really important. A day. I really think you need a day to actually sit with yourself. And like you said, once you started journaling and you had that brain, just everything just flowed, that takes a little bit of time to get into. And it requires a different part of your brain to the brain that is in your office, the brain that's out with the kids, the brain that's with your partner. It's a different part of your brain, and very, very rarely in society these days do we actually spend time with our parts of our brain that think, what do I want? What do I want for me?
Yeah.
Particularly in our industry, we're all givers,
Yes.
So you've got to come back in and do a little bit of, okay, self-introspection. What would make me happy? What do I want to achieve? What's the legacy that I want to lead? They're big questions.
Huge. The most important.
And yeah, they are. They're really important. But the end goal doesn't have to be massive either, overthinking it. To give you an example, so I'm still in business, startup. So I've been coaching for a long time, but at some stage you've got to actually put yourself out there, build a website, get your social media sorted, get your branding, get all of that side of things happening. And so my 12-month goal was that by the end of 12 months, I just wanted to make sure that I had my branding, my messaging, who I am, who I serve, clear. Mm-hmm. Had that down as a very firm platform, so that from there then I can launch into the next stage. So that's all that, it can be that simple. So is it, what's your big thing you've got to do? So now all I'm focusing on every day when I'm working is what do I need to do to have all those platforms in place and get that happening.
Beautiful.
So it doesn't need to be massive.
Yes.
It has to be something that will get you a launch pad to the next stage if that's all it happens to be.
Yeah, got it. So I guess our listeners and audience there too will be one in two places. You'll either know what it will look like in 12 months' time, and if you have, then okay. And if you don't, then set that time apart. We've got some resources here. And then the next step would be kind of breaking that down into kind of, okay, if I want to be here in 12 months, where do I need to be in 9, and then in 6, and then in 3? And then come back to that 3 months, that 90 days, and go, okay, where does that mean that I need to be at the end of month 1 and then the end of month 2? When I've got some clarity in around the end of month 1, I can then break that down to 4 weeks. And then that cycle then gives you, it means that each and every day that you're getting up and knowing that even if it's just one simple little thing that you're doing, moving towards your 12-month goal, which means you don't get to the end of the year and go, oh my God, what did I do this year? Nothing. It's the antidote for that, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And you get to celebrate. Go, oh my God, fantastic year. I mean, 2020 probably threw a lot of people out of the water. I think it's probably a good time maybe, hey, were there things that occurred during lockdown? Did you have a change of seeing the world in a different way? Have you maybe people have really been able to get more clear on their values?
Yeah.
When home with family, maybe you see the world in a different place. It might be a good time to just have a rethink about what's important to you and where you want to be. And it's not easy to get clarity.
No.
The reason for it's not easy to get clarity is, remember the saying is that information is power and knowledge is power. Yeah. So it used to be knowledge was power. And, as practitioners, we spend all this time working with our patients. You've got to know this, you've got to know that. We work on education to empower them. And the people in the old-timey days, as my son calls it, the old-timey days, if they could read, if they had knowledge, they had the power, they had the upper hand. These days, we're reasonably well educated, and there's so much information now, there's so much knowledge coming in, that now we're in a state of overwhelm. And we don't have clarity anymore. Everything's coming in all the time from different sources. It's really hard to get clarity.
Yeah.
And I'd say now the new thing that we should live by now, instead of knowledge is power, is that clarity is power.
Yep. Yeah, I can buy that. I'm fascinated by that whole concept of paradox of choice. And I think that's kind of what you've just sort of articulated. Because we have so many more options nowadays, is the more options are not actually bringing us joy at all. In fact, they're robbing us of joy, and to choose some things there too. I want to do my very best to encourage our listeners to, one, set some time aside, but two, just decide something. And with the complete freedom from me, that doesn't mean anything. So you can change at any stage. I would ask you to ask yourself why you want to change, but check in, because it may be, because if you're changing because it's too hard, because just because we lay it out like those 12 months there too doesn't mean that's going to be easy. But if you decide along the way that actually, no, I've missed something on my values, this is not where I want to go, then you just set the plan again there too. So, And do you have any other thoughts in terms of kind of just bringing this to full circle, to helping people at the end of this, for them to set aside a day and to move forwards? Do you need some action steps or things for them to think about, hurdles they might reach?
The difficulties in setting that time, is that what you're asking me?
Well, if at the end of this, someone's listening, I'm sure there are thousands of practitioners listening now who are super inspired by what you've shared with them, and they're setting aside time this weekend, I'm sure, a day, and they're going to get into this as well. I'm sure as they sit down with their beautiful journals and their fancy coloured pens and highlighters and post-it notes and the likes, there are going to be some difficulties they're going to achieve or come across throughout that day. What are those difficulties going to be, and how do they move through those so they can get this kind of 12-month plan at least laid out on that day they've set aside?
Difficulties are going to be distractions, I think, for a lot of people. What can you do to minimize your distractions? Let your family know this is what you're doing. This is really important, and you're doing it for you and for them. Lock yourself away if you need to. Go somewhere that excites you. If it's a possibility to sit at the park or the beach or somewhere that really, just allows the thoughts to come in. And sometimes I do think that the thoughts don't always come from us. I sometimes think that we're here for a purpose, and sometimes we need to be open to as a conduit for that inspiration to come to us. So if you can be somewhere that allows you to be open, allows that inspiration for you to catch it and write it down. What are you here on the earth for? What have you got to create? What have you got to do to serve? What do you feel is your driving purpose? And then your goals need to be around that. So just one big goal. If it's going to get you closer to where you need to go, I like what you said, just choose something. I think if you choose something and you start on the process, if you're not 100% clear to start with, as you start going through the process, it will come.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of good reasoning and thought behind, here's my goal. This is what I want to do. I've got my pen here. This is what I want to do. Write it down, and then write all the obstacles that might come in the way, and then what your solution is going to be to that obstacle. So, for me, for example, I've got to build a website. Well, I've gone through probably 3 different options as to how I'm going to build it. Now I'm being brave and doing it myself. But I had to actually go through a troubleshooting process of, this is not working for me. This is not the way I need it to go. So I need to learn the process anyway. So, just finding what your solutions are going to be to the problems. Yeah. So that when you hit the problem, it doesn't sideswipe you, and that you can keep going straight forward. So I think here's the big thing that I want, here's the overarching goal. Again, breaking it down into that process and just get started. And I love the fact that you can change. And that's one of the beauties of being human. Yeah. Is that you can change.
Yeah, beautiful thoughts. And as you mentioned beforehand too, and some of you, one of the ways to fast track this too, gang, is get some one-on-one support, get some coaching. There's loads of people that do this. Angie's one. I'll have her show notes in the show notes links there too. But if people do want to find you and want your help through this in helping get some clarity and build a business plan, a bit of a life plan that lets them have a life that they love as opposed to one that they dread, how do they go getting in contact with you? Where do they find you at this fancy new website of yours?
Yeah, that's an embarrassing question because it hasn't happened yet, has it? I think it's really the easiest thing at the moment. Yeah. Is my email. Yeah. So I don't know, can you put that into the show notes?
Damn right, it'll be there. Yes. Yep. So that'll be in the show notes.
I am on Facebook, but I'm still haven't gone through the process of the branding, and so brand alignment, that's still all working at the moment, still early days. So it is Angela Carroll Coaching. On Facebook, it's Angela Carroll, and website will be Angela Carroll Coaching. Yeah. But the email is angela@angelacarrollcoaching.com.au.
Great. I'll have all those notes, all those links in the show notes there as well. So, Angela, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I feel like I could kind of talk around this whole concept of clarity forever, because it's one of those things that's just so damn important at us making a decision around what we want. And then from then we can start to, I talk about so many different marketing implementation strategies inside and on the podcast and things like that too, but they're all completely irrelevant if you don't have clarity around where you want to go. They're just vehicles to help you achieve your life. And if you're not sure what your life is first, then the vehicle is really kind of irrelevant. So on behalf of my audience, thank you so much for taking on this incredibly tricky, but super important kind of topic there as well. I can't wait to see your involvement as things kind of move forwards, and hopefully kind of have another chat in the coming months as you continue to learn and teach more.
Love that. That would be fabulous. And thank you. And thank you everybody for listening in, and wish you all the best this weekend while you get some clarity.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear all about it. So, gang, I'll have all the show notes in there, all Angela's contact details of where you can reach out to her and follow her on the socials if you're wanting somebody to help you with this. As I mentioned at the beginning of this too, this is not, whilst this corner of section for Angela's new, but she's been helping practitioners for 16 years, 10,000 people that she's kind of helped there. And this is just an extension of the amazing work that she's done. So if this is what you're looking for, I've been watching Angela's stuff for ages and just see nothing but great stuff from her. So, Ange, have a fabulous morning. Thank you for sharing so generously with us today.
More than welcome. I loved it.
See you soon. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me on over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.